What is up, Twitter? What is up, YouTube? Happy Tuesday. Good to see everybody today. Good to see you. Brian D, what up? Tom C, Paul Haynes, Brian D in the house. Mr. K, good morning, y'all. Happy, what is today? Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Let's get it, guys. How's everybody going today? Need to hear myself. We hooked up. Why can I not hear my jams? Oh, I must have my audio messed up. Give me 1 second. Let me get it together. I definitely had it. There we go. Now we got jams going on. Happy morning, guys. Good to see everybody. Let's get it. See what we're diving into today. Bitcoin rallying back up a little bit at 27,732 this morning. Still looking like I was going back to this golden cross, and I was looking at a bunch of different looking at these charts. And if you take a look at when the golden cross happens, it almost always comes back down and confirms support on the 20-day moving average. Or the 50-day moving average, which would mean, if I'm looking at this right, so here was this golden cross right here. We came back down and found support on it right here. This one, when we crossed here, we didn't end up coming down and confirming support till way a lot higher. See if we got any more. Oh, I can't go back farther on that one. That was 19. Take a look at the 2017 one. Yeah, same with the 2017 one as well. When we crossed over, we rode it all the way up. So if we follow suit, we come back down, it would be Bitcoin coming down. I don't think we've ever broke below the 50-day after we crossed, except for that one time in 2020 when we had the liquidity crisis. So that would put a target on Bitcoin around somewhere in this range. If it came right down to the 50-day right now, it'd be 2650. Golden shower, baby. Golden shower. Give me 1 second. Grab a water real quick. How's KDA? KDA miner, I sold those Walker through. I never even got them up running. There were some problems with them. I couldn't connect to the internet for some. I couldn't get them to stay running, so I turned them off. I turned those off a long time ago. I didn't turn them off. I just returned them. I heard, didn't I just see something about KDA's hash rate going through the roof? Yeah, right here. So Cadena's hash rate went from 2,000 to 5,000 petty hashes in a very short period of time. Annette, good to see you. Oh, I know what a golden shower means. R. Kelly style. Oh, there we go. I'm like trying to yell over here because my music's so loud. In my ears. I think that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, that was it. Was my music really loud in the background? Probably. Let's take a look and see what we got going on over here in the markets. Let's take a look at pre-market hours. And then we'll jump into some breaking news over on Gateway Pundit and see what we got going on. Futures are down. So stocks making the biggest moves pre-market. Skyworks, Under Armour, and more. So 3D Systems dropped 9.8% after disappointing first quarter results. Skyworks Solutions shed more than 9% after issuing weaker than expected financial third quarter guidance. Under Armour shares, a apparel company, fell nearly 5% in pre-market trading despite Under Armour's fiscal fourth quarter results beating expectations on top of the bottom line. Wow. Fisker slid 12.5% in pre-market after first quarter's earnings missed estimates. The automotive company reported a greater than expected loss of 38 cents per share, while an analysis estimated a loss of 30 cents per share. Western Digital, the chip stock rose about 2% in pre-market after company reported a revenue beat in the last quarter. PayPal Holdings, shares of PayPal fell by nearly 5% more, hit by weak current earnings. Guidance is on otherwise positive report. PayPal, well, maybe you shouldn't have been controlled by BlackRock and charging people a $2,500 misinformation fee. Nobody I know wants to use PayPal anymore. Lucid Group, the electric vehicle maker, fell nearly 11% in pre-market trading after reporting a larger than expected quarterly loss. The company's revenues of $149 million against Refinitiv analysis expectations of $209 million. Trek Company popped 4.8% in pre-market trading, exceeding analysis expectations of top and bottom line. The maker of wood alternative decking and railing expected second quarter revenues between $310 million and $320 million, while analysis forecasted guidance of $309 million. McKesson rose 4.9% after posting better than expected quarterly results. And it's funny, it's all my dad's buddies that are really big into the stock market. They're like, oh, we're all out, 100% out of the market right now. So, yep. Government is taking them all out one by one, baby. While they're ushering in their totalitarian China-loving Apple. So, no big news for the markets. We take a look at our bank stocks from yesterday and see how they're doing. See how they finished out the day. Comerica Bank dropped another, oh my gosh, 10% yesterday. Holy shit. Comerica Bank dropped 10% just yesterday alone. Holy shit, 10.2%. Goodbye, Comerica. First Horizon getting beat the hell again. Dutchess Bank, not too bad. Oh, Dutchess Bank's getting ready to pre-market open pretty down too. Looks like it's already down 10 basis points. Bank of America fell yesterday as well. Bank of America, yesterday losses were 1%. PNC Bank fell again. Pre-market setting to open up down. PacWest Bancorp obviously is going to open up down. They had a pretty rough day yesterday. It looks like they came down. Oh my gosh. PacWest Bancorp dropped 20% yesterday. And it looks like they're already down 10% in pre-market. Jeez, oh Pete's. And they're talking about freezing your bank account. Standard Bank, they're out of Sweden. Annette? Is that what you were looking for yesterday? I definitely found the Swedish one. I'm almost positive I found the Swedish one for you. Shit, I thought I did. SWB, is that the Swedish? Oh, that's the Stuttgart Stock Exchange. Stuttgart. Tradegate Exchange. Turquoise, what stock market is that on? Do you know? Do you know what exchange it's on? Maybe not. Maybe I couldn't find it yesterday. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to pull it up. They have a branch here. They must not be traded on USA stock market. I was going to try to pull it up on one of the foreign markets, but I don't know what stock market it's on. It might not even, I mean, some of these banks aren't even publicly traded, so I'll find out today. All right, cool. I'll pull it up if you can find out. Ryan, please search and watch YouTube Cadena realistic model, price model. Walker through, will you send me a link over on Twitter, and I will. Arc Intel for KDA. I told you earlier his prediction is 1,200 to 8,000 per KDA in 2031. I believe it. I believe it. It all just depends on adoption, you know? I mean, can they bring in, like, is a majority of the world going to move to crypto? Is AI going to make any difference in this? I don't know. I definitely think so. Especially if you add in the fact that I'm pretty positive that AI, that you could teach Chat GPT-4 how to build dApps in Cadena, on Cadena. I'm thinking that people will soon be liquidating their assets. How do I say that? Sabonis?
Saboinis secret.
That wasn't what I wanted.
Saboinis.
Saboinis. Saboinis. That's how I say it. Saboinis secret. I think that people will still be liquidating their assets. I agree. Close enough. Saboinis. Saboinis. Saboinis secret. Saboinis. I think I'm saying that right. Secret. Close enough. I like your style. Thank you. Dynamic Crypto. Good to see you. It's Gilik. I suck at spelling if you didn't know already. Western Alliance Bancorp as well took a pretty big beating. Let's see what Western Alliance took yesterday. When in the world did traditional markets start moving at? Yeah, DM me on Twitter, Walker through, Ryan Matamedia. When Cadena, yours ELH? I don't know, man. I see it. It's funny is it's trending every day on Twitter, and it's sitting at this all-time low. Or not all-time low, but pretty much in these market conditions. So, I mean, like who's going to sell? Because I know most people didn't even know about Cadena over here. So the only people that would be enticed or incentivized to sell in this area are miners. You know, miners that are mining and profitable. But even then, it doesn't... You know, we got some support down here till 71 cents, 68 cents. So maybe if it does break here, it somehow manages to stay up here. I mean, it's very possible that it free falls back down here to, you know, 31 cent range. But normally for like really big pullbacks like that, you need people to be incentivized to sell. So yeah, people are liquidating their assets because they're running out of money and they have to sell their alts just to make up. Very possible. I know I'm waiting till I think I'm gonna buy another couple grand if I can down here in this range. I should just buy it now because it's at 80 cents. And I have a feeling like the market's gonna rally, and it's just a matter of time right now before, you know, people realize that the PP coins aren't very good. When? The same time all crypto will be at all-time highs in 2025. I mean, not if we don't get rid of this government, Blue. Yeah, I guess there's no way that Biden stays in power in 2025, so yeah. But I think we still got a long way to go before we really understand. No way I'm selling, Blue says. Yeah, I can't imagine many people would be selling at this 80 cent range, so. But then again, you know, I thought that at the $1.20 range. I probably thought that at the $3 range. I probably thought that at the $4 range. No, I didn't. I didn't think it at the $4 range. I was giving up hope in this range. But up here at the $6 range, I was like, yeah. Like, why? Who would be incentivized to sell? We're not going down to 3. No way. Sure as shit we did. Feel 75 cents around the corner. I wouldn't be surprised, Blue. MACD's giving us. Yeah, I mean it's not looking good for KDA, that's for sure. I'm holding crypto. I am too. I got 90% of my net worth in crypto. I keep it all in crypto. Let's take a look at Gateway Pundit and see what breaking news stories we got going on today. That border crap is scary. Oh, wow. Chairman Peter Hathaway arrested during Berkshire shareholder proposal presentation after connecting CEO Warren Buffett to Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. What? NLPC Chairman Peter Flaherty? Yeah, Flaherty. Arrested during Berkshire shareholder proposal presentation after connecting CEO Warren Buffett to Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. Peter Flaherty, chairman of the National League and Policy Center, NLPC, had his microphone cut, arrested, and escorted out of Berkshire Hathaway's annual meeting on Saturday in Omaha, Nebraska. Flaherty was removed at the shareholders meeting and was charged with criminal trespassing after making statements against Berkshire Hathaway CEO Warren Buffett for his support for Bill Gates' organization and his associations with convicted felon Jeffrey Epstein. The National League and Policy Center, NLPC, is the primary proponent of a Berkshire Hathaway shareholder proposal that seeks to separate the responsibilities of the chairman and CEO, according to NLPC's press release. Flaherty argued that Berkshire would be less identified with Mr. Buffett's personal political activities if it hadn't had an independent chair, citing Warren Buffett's support for Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation as an example. Each resolution sponsored was allotted 3 minutes to make their argument. Michael Ferrens, the treasurer of Illinois, was one of these 3 spokespersons who spoke before Flaherty without being cut off. The following is prepared statement that NLPC Chairman Peter Flaherty wants to make at the Berkshire annual meeting. I am Peter Flaherty, Chairman of the National League and Policy Center. If we had an independent chair, the company would be less identified with Mr. Buffett's political activities. He donated more than $100 billion to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as Bill Gates explained when the couple was still together. Although the foundation bears our names, basically half of our resources have come from Warren Buffett. If woke culture is a disease, then philanthropy is the virus. The Gates Foundation bankrolls the teaching of critical race theory around the country, including that math is inherently racist. The Gates Foundation offers a gender identity toolbook which asserts that gender is a result of society and culture constructed ideas. This is a lie. Gender is not a culture construct. It is a genetic and biological fact. We know how much Bill Gates cares about children. He met and traveled with Jeffrey Epstein many times after Epstein was a convicted sex criminal. The Gates Foundation had a huge influence over the COVID response fiasco. Bill Gates demanded China's COVID policies and still discounts the probability that the virus originated from a lab, even though U.S. intelligence agencies disagree. The Gates Foundation may be the largest single donor to the dark money machine known as Arabella Associates, which funds causes like defunding the police that are making American cities unlivable. Money goes to the groups conducting threatening and vulgar protests at the homes of Supreme Court justices. Mr. Buffett has quietly funneled more than $4 billion to groups supporting abortion on demand through the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation. That's $4 billion with a B, advocacy disguised as philanthropy. Bill Gates has laminated political polarization and even worried aloud about a civil war. But it's billionaires who are funding the most shrill and extreme activists who are tearing our country apart. Ironically, Mr. Buffett has pointed out that corporate executives can make a lot of people mad when they insert themselves into controversy. Anheuser-Busch is finding that out. It cannot renounce its Dylan Mulvaney transgender promotion because it is handcuffed by its longtime support for activists who would turn on them in a minute. Anheuser-Busch gets a perfect grade on the Human Rights Campaign scorecard, as does Berkshire portfolio companies like Coca-Cola, Bank of America, and Apple. Bank of America and Apple helped bankroll this group, which wants biological men to compete in women's sports. Worse, it is currently pursuing state legislators to allow sex change operations on children and to keep their parents out of the decision. Let's revisit Coca-Cola, which I discussed at this year's meeting. CEO Jamie Quincy, a British citizen, tried to kill Georgia voters' integrity law in 2021 by making inaccurate and inflammatory statements about it. That's the law that President Biden called Jim Crow 2.0 and which promoted Major League Baseball to move the All-Star game out of Atlanta. Mr. Buffett jumped on the bandwagon too by signing a statement by corporate leaders suggesting that Republicans seek to restrict ballots access based on race. 2 years later, we can now evaluate the accusations. Last year, an election was held in Georgia. Turnout was record-breaking. According to an independent poll, 99% of voters said they had no problem casting ballots. 92% said that the new law either had no impact on their ability to vote or made it easier. James Quincy was wrong, and Mr. Buffett, so were you. During the first minutes of his speech, he was approached and interrupted at the microphone. Kathy Woolens, a Berkshire official who was designated liaison with proponents for the meeting, told Flaherty that he should stay on topic. Flaherty stared into the microphone. "You are not going to censor what I say, Mama. I'm very sorry, and I appeal to the chair, occupied by Buffett, that I be allowed to continue, sir." Buffett responded, "You may continue, but under 3-minute limitation." Flaherty stated, "Of course," and resumed speaking until his mic went dead. Wow. People aren't taking their bullshit anymore. These terrorists are being exposed for exactly who they are. Yo, Tori, I'm gonna eat the. I'm just gonna give in and eat the bugs. Tori, good to see you, man. Oh shit, I got one for you, Tori. Done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
I am Peter Flaherty, chairman of the National Legal and Policy Center. If we had an independent chair, the company would be less identified with Mr. Buffett's political activities. He's donated tens of billions to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. As Bill Gates explained when the company was still together, although the company bears our names, basically half our resources have come from Warren Buffett. If woke culture is the disease, then philanthropy is the virus. The Gates Foundation bankrolls the teaching of critical race theory around the country, including that math is inherently racist. The Gates Foundation offers a gender identity toolbox, which asserts that gender is a result of socially and culturally constructed ideas. This is a lie. Gender is not a cultural construct. It is a genetic and biological fact. You're not going to censor what I say, ma'am. I'm very sorry. And I'll appeal to the chair that I be allowed to continue. Sir?
You may continue, but you're under a 3-minute limitation.
Of course. We know how much Bill Gates cares about children. He met and traveled with Jeffrey Epstein many times after Epstein's convicted sex crimes. The Gates Foundation had a huge influence over the COVID response fiasco. The Gates Foundation may be the largest single donor to the dark money machine known as Arabella Associates.
We don't.
It funds causes like defunding the police,
Personal
making American cities unlivable.
Well, somebody
Money
please
goes also to
remove Mr.
groups
Flaherty from the.
conducting threat.
Just cross the boundary. And I will point out that Mr. Flaherty is talking about
Right. I'll point out. Should we hear about Buffett's response?
money that I've given, not Berkshire Hathaway. I'm not sure where Mr. Flaherty gives his money, but that's his business. And I will say that I am alert to the problem at subsidiaries of people putting pressure on suppliers, on being affected by their own personal politics. So, Greg and I look at such things as political contributions, which are unfortunately in a few industries a part of the way the world works. You get in the public utility business, the insurance business, railroad business, they need their views represented, and the industry works in certain ways. We have PACs for employees, but we don't want those to be used for the personal politics of any of our managers, and I keep an eye on that sort of thing, and Greg does too. So, and we've had a few occasions when I think managers have abused it. I'm not sure which direction they were even, but we ended it, and it may come up again. Humans, in their charitable contributions, as well as political contributions, our managers should not treat the shareholders' money as their own, and they should treat it as the shareholders' money. And we let them make local decisions, but we do not let them decide that their own personal college or whatever it may be is profitable that everybody else's, and therefore they direct Berkshire funds in that direction. And generally speaking, we've had quite a satisfactory experience, but obviously it's not perfect with something like that. But that's the policy that governs at Berkshire. It will.
Sounds like bullshit to me, folks. Sounds like bullshit to me. Immediately, two representatives of Clark International Security approached and stood in front of Flaherty. According to the NLP's press release, he was told to leave and he would be arrested. Flaherty replied that he would leave when he was finished his statement. At this point, Flaherty was not fully aware that his mic had been cut off, was still under the 3-minute limitation, and had already received a favorable ruling from the chair. Flaherty was charged with criminal trespassing by Omaha police. One of Clark representatives summoned a uniformed Omaha policeman who was nearby and requested that he arrest Flaherty. He grabbed Flaherty by the arm, advised him that he was under arrest, and led him out of the arena. Flaherty was transported by Omaha police to Douglas County Correction Center, where he was searched, handcuffed, and charged with criminal trespassing. What a loser. What a loser, man.
Our managers should not treat shareholders' money as their own. They should treat it as shareholders' money. We let them make local decisions, but we do not let them decide their own personal.
What? Fuck you, man. What a piece of shit. What a absolute piece of shit. Oh, I didn't want to retweet that. I wanted to quote that tweet. What is their tag? What is it? Berkshire Hathaway? Just tag them all. Warren Buffett, you loser. I love it, man. Mike's too low? Get on with it, Grandpa. What the hell is he babbling about? Buffett made no sense. No, none whatsoever. He was trying to say that like they allow the managers of Berkshire Hathaway some like leeway so that, you know, they have had managers that they allow to control investments and invest in local communities, but they're not supposed to do so based off their political agenda. So if they see that blah, 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 far left judge blocks Trump from posting details about Stormy Daniels' hush money payments case to social media. What a loser. What a loser. Is that illegal? Is that illegal for you to defend yourself, not making it illegal? Judge June McKinn Judge June Merchant on Monday blocked President Trump from posting about the Stormy Daniels hush money payments case on his social media. The judge also barred Trump from viewing evidence in the Stormy Daniels case unless his lawyers are present. Trump was charged with 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records and conspiracy in March. Trump was placed under arrest ahead of his arraignment after a Manhattan grand jury indicted him on junk charges related to hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels and Playboy centerfold Karen McDougal. Manhattan DA Alvin Braggs went through the Trump organization's ledger and charged him down the line per payment to Cohen. The indictment said the payments are to the two women were to silence them about the affairs in order to avoid those accounts. And what's funny is Stormy Daniels is denying the affairs ever happened in order to avoid the accounts harming his chances of winning the election over Hillary Clinton. June Merchant, a far-left New York Supreme Court judge who previously donated to Joe Biden, threatened Trump with a gag order back in April. On Monday, he ordered Trump to, CNBC reported, a judge on Monday barred former President Trump from making public evidence and other materials related to the pending criminal case against him in New York, where he is charged with falsifying business records related to the 2016 hush money payment to porn star. We all just read that. We just went over all that. Gateway pundit interviews president candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who tells all on CAA, his father's assassination, and JFK's assassination in historic interview. Wow.
Their lives were tragically cut short, and America took a different path. Yet the possibility they foresaw is still alive, the America that almost was, and yet may be. I've been fighting corporate corruption my entire life, but I understand that today the problem is much larger than a few crooked individuals. The problem is a system that no longer serves the people, and a people who are so divided and so fearful that they are easily ruled. It's time to unlearn the reflexes of fear and blame and find ways to unify ourselves and turn our country around. I won't pretend to you that it will be easy, but I know what it will take. My father said it: love, wisdom, and compassion toward one another. And that's where we need to start. We will scale down the war machine and bring our resources home. We will rebuild our water systems, repair our roads, modernize our railroads, and clean up our environment. We will also clean up government and earn back the people's trust. We will end the secrecy, the censorship, and the surveillance. We will again be a fearless land of liberty.
The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it.
We will face honestly the darker parts of our history, the genocide, the racism, not to shame or blame or punish, but to repair as best we can in a spirit of compassion and kindness toward all. I'm inviting all of you to join me to create an America that we can believe in and be proud of again. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm running for President of the United States.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jim Hoff, the founder of the Gateway Pundit, and I'm thrilled tonight to have with us Robert Kennedy Jr., the presidential candidate for the Democrat Party. I'd like to introduce Robert. He, of course, is well known to many of you. Robert is a premier American environmental lawyer and activist. Robert is a Harvard graduate and received his law degree from the University of Virginia. Robert is the author of a recent bestseller, The Real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the Global War on Democracy and Public Health. The book sold over 1 million copies, and that's despite its censorship by the mainstream media. Robert is one of the most censored and important voices in the American landscape today. Robert is a son of U.S. Attorney General and presidential candidate Robert Kennedy, and Robert is a nephew of John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States. So we'd like to welcome Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to the Gateway Pundit tonight. Thank you for giving us some of your time tonight, Robert.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
This is really a thrill. I'd like to throw in a disclaimer quickly, and that is that Robert and I are, along with several other journalists and experts, are in an antitrust lawsuit that we filed in January against the Trusted News Initiative. It's a legacy media conglomerate that worked to censor alternative media and those voices who dared to question the narrative relating to COVID-19, the pandemic, and the vaccine mandates. So we're currently working in that lawsuit together. Robert, it's really a thrill to have you on tonight. I saw a poll earlier today from ABC News, and I'm sure it was good news for you. And that was that 56% or 58% of Democrats want someone else besides Joe Biden. And only 36% of Democrats support Joe Biden. This was a shocking poll from ABC News today. Do you have any reaction to that?
No, I haven't seen that poll, Jim, so I really can't comment on it because I haven't taken a look at it.
Right. There was also a couple other polls this past week. One is you were as high as 21% in the Democrat primary. And you just launched your campaign a couple of weeks ago officially. So that must be very good news for you.
It's very heartening, and we have polls that I find even more optimistic than that. But I'm very, very happy with that polling this early in the race.
That's terrific, and we're seeing you making lots of podcasts recently with some pretty high-profile names, and they're always very interesting. You have a real honest approach to the politics that we haven't heard from many individuals the past several years. And so it's been very refreshing to hear you speak and to talk about real problems. And we're going to get into some of that today. I wanted to ask you about a recent interview you did with ABC News. And that was this Lindsay Davis. After the interview, they announced that they cut your statements. They said they were false statements on the COVID vaccine. So it's pretty stunning that they're doing this with a presidential candidate, one of the top candidates in the country, and they're deciding that some of the statements you made are false. And what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's a habit that they got into during COVID. I mean, even before that, they were censoring anything that was critical of vaccines. They've been doing that since 2005. Oh, even government databases, you're not allowed to talk about them if you're not allowed to cite peer-reviewed science or to question the government orthodoxies on vaccination. And I suppose the company, I think the most charitable way of looking at this is that these companies feel that they are thereby protecting public health. But it's not. The worst way of looking at it is that these companies are kind of obeying the dictates of their pharmaceutical advertisers. But in either case, it's just a bad business for news providers to get into in a democracy, to be manipulating the news in order to protect their listeners from dangerous thoughts. Number one, it doesn't work. It just makes people more curious, more angry, more distrustful of the media, and then more apt to seek information elsewhere. And secondly, the media has to be really agnostic. They need to be neutral. They need to be not promoting government policies, but they need to produce, as Louis Brandeis said, that they must maintain a posture of fierce opposition to government authorities. That's the job of a news organization, of a media organization, and a democracy. Fierce skepticism at all times, to not believe anything, to demand that government officials show you the proof of what they're saying, because we know people in authority lie. And the check and balance in a democracy is that we have an independent press that is willing to speak truth to power, and that it sees its business not as manipulating information, but as providing information, an existential search for empirical truths, and then fiercely reporting those truths to the public. In a democracy, we have to trust the public. If you do not trust the public, then you no longer are an advocate of democracy. Because we have to trust that the public, when you give them good information, is going to behave in a rational way. And that means by giving them good information, doesn't mean information that you think is good for them. It means information that is true, whether you think it's good for them or not. And if you don't have that, the public is going to lose faith in the institutions that provide information. And the free flow of information is the fertilizer, it's the water, it's the sunlight of democracy. And once you withdraw that, and democracy withers and dies. There's never been a time in history when the good guys were the people who were censoring books and censoring information. And throughout COVID, the media took on this responsibility of basically lying to the public about public health issues in order to get them to follow a certain policy, which the media believed in, apparently, which were lockdowns, masks, the forced vaccination, etc. And now it's clear that those policies were not beneficial to public health. But I think the media got into this posture of censorship, and it's hard for them to relinquish it.
Absolutely. We're seeing that continually to this day. And of course, you were one of the main targets of the censorship apparatus. Gateway Pundit was. But we're finding out that a lot of the things, if not most of the things that we reported on at the time, was absolutely factual. And we were even grabbing things from the CDC website that they were listing as, misinformation. It's quite incredible what they were doing. Do you think there's any hope that we can, that the media will right its ship and come back and actually start, instead of promoting the government, that they'll start questioning the government a little more?
I don't know, Jim. If I'm president, I'm going to take certain steps to try to make sure that happens. And one is to get pharmaceutical advertising off of TV, which I can do with the president can do by executive order with a stroke of the pen. He can force FDA to promulgate regulations to remove it, which is it's not good to have pharmaceutical advertising on TV. It's good for the television stations. It's good for the pharmaceutical companies. but it's not good for public health. There's only two nations in the world that allow pharmaceutical advertising on TV. One is New Zealand, the other is here. And, as a result of that, we use more prescription drugs than any country in the world. We use on average 3 to 4 times more than Europeans, the average American does. We have we pay more for healthcare than anybody in the world. We spend $4.3 trillion a year, and we have the worst health outcomes in the top 79 nations. So, and by the way, pharmaceutical drugs are now the third leading cause of death in this country. So they're not making us healthy. We have the highest chronic disease rate of any country in the world, and this means neurological diseases, autoimmune diseases, allergic diseases, and a lot of those are related to the chemicals we're exposed to and the pharmaceutical drugs, overprescription of pharmaceutical drugs. And so they're not making us healthy, but everybody's making money, and we need to go back to the way it was prior to 1997, when you didn't have those ads on TV all the time. It's not good for the American people, and
Dan, that's so true.
I'm going to get rid of it.
Fantastic. That'd be a great start. And I wanted to go over your website, a few things you put up on the Kennedy 24 website for everybody out there. It seems it's more than just words. It seems like there's really a lot of thought that was put into this, and I appreciate that in this day and age. I wanted to hit a couple of the topics that you found important that you want to bring with your platform. You want to concentrate on. One, of course, is the first one is trust. Clean government means changing the system. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that we have this polarization in the country is the lack of trust of the democratic institutions, and it's critical that we restore that trust. We need to start telling the truth again to the American people. We need to get the financial incentives out of our regulatory process. We need to make sure that pharmaceutical companies cannot, finance FDA. Half of FDA's budget comes from pharmaceutical companies. That no other regulatory agency in the world would allow that to happen. Why is it that NIH can collect royalties on pharmaceutical drugs? That's just dead wrong. And the scientists who work for FDA, who are supposed to be regulating the pharmaceutical industry, they actually are making money by promoting pharmaceutical products that they worked on. They can make $150,000 a year forever. Their heirs and everything else, if the drug that they worked on, that they get a walk-in margin rights for royalties on that drug. And so, for example, on the Moderna vaccine, there's between 4 and 6 NIH regulators who now are set for life. They're making $150,000 a year just on royalties for doing nothing, and their children will, etc. So their incentive is to promote that product and to not find any problems with that product and to tell everybody the product is great and you ought to take it, which is exactly what they were doing. NIH itself, the institution, has made billions of dollars on it. They own half of the license. So the incentive of NIH, of the regulatory agencies, of Anthony Fauci is, let's make everybody use this, because the more people we get to use it, the more money we're going to make, and let's get people who don't need it to use it, like little children and infants and pregnant women, people who it's clearly going to be bad for, where it's going to cause more harm than good. That's not a good incentive. And if you go through the regulatory agencies, you see these instruments of regulatory capture. And I've sued almost all of the major agencies, or I've had suits that involve those agencies, NIH, EPA, CDC, FDA, the DOT, the United States Department of Agriculture. I spent years in litigation on those issues with big factory farms, with agricultural chemical companies. they are not working for us anymore. They're working for the companies, the industries that they are supposed to be regulating, and they have become sock puppets for those industries. And and because of that, they're no longer working to protect the environment or protect public health. They're working to advance the mercantile interests of these regulated industries.
Absolutely. It was shocking finding out, maybe not to you, but I think to the average American, that we're funding some of these biolabs, Robert, in places like Ukraine, and now we found out in Africa, and and Wuhan, of course. Uh, that's quite stunning that we're spending our money doing something like that. I don't think most Americans are for that. What do you have to say about that? Is that something that you continue?
It's actually so frightening if you actually look at what they're doing. They're developing ethnic bioweapons, weapons that can kill selectively members of certain races, whether it's Chinese or Russians or Arabs or black people. That is what they are doing in those biolabs. That's one of the really frightening things that they are doing.
Wow.
They're doing a lot of other horrific things. They're developing stealth bioweapons, weapons that can infect a population over many years and then be activated at some distant date and start killing people at that time. They're using all kinds of synthetic biology and gain of function studies, and all of this is illegal. It's all illegal under the Bioweapons Charter, under the Bioweapons Treaty, under the Geneva Convention, and they found a bunch of loopholes. They put loopholes in the Patriot Act that said that, yeah, we recognize this violates the Geneva Convention, the Bioweapons Treaty, but no public health, no federal official can be prosecuted for violating those acts. So they effectively, without revoking those acts specifically, they effectively revoke them when it comes to federal officials like Anthony Fauci. And we have a long history of bioweapons development in this country, beginning in 1947 with Operation Paperclip, when the CIA was created. Its first task was to bring over the Nazi scientists, the death scientists from Nazi Germany, and the science, and to download the bioweapon scientists from Japan, some of whom did come over to this country, but they continued to work in Japan under U.S. auspices, developing the weapons that they had already developed for those regimes. And a lot of the ethics from those scientists and those public officials infected the public health superstructure from the beginning. So it was the CIA that was conducting these at Fort Detrick with the U.S. military and with NIH. And the NIH was infiltrated by these characters from the beginning. And they were developing, by 1969, they had developed bioweapons with nuclear equivalents. They could kill huge populations at, they bragged, 29 cents per life. And they could kill a third of the population of the United States. Again, they bragged about this. In 1969, Nixon did something that nobody expected. He went to Fort Detrick and he announced that we were unilaterally terminating all bioweapons research and development.
I was texting Kyle.
And that we were getting out of the business. And then Nixon organized in 1970.
Did you guys see Kyle Seraphin on Tim Pool's podcast last night? That's what I was texting right now. It's 43,000 people watching.
A treaty that we ultimately signed in 1973 that ended, in which many nations agreed to end all bioweapons. The CIA removed its cultures from Fort Detrick and hid them. While all the other cultures were destroyed at Fort Detrick, the CIA disobeyed. And they continued to illegally develop bioweapons. And then in 2001, we had an anthrax attack. And if you remember what happened in 2001, on 9/11, we had the 9/11 attacks, and the neocons in the White House took the Patriot Act off a shelf where they'd had it for a long time. And in the first week after 9/11, they were jamming this through Congress. There was 2 senators who were holding it up. Nobody had read it in Congress, by the way. The only congressman that actually read the act was Dennis Kucinich, who is now managing my campaign. And Dennis said that unlike every other bill, the Patriot Act, which is 350 pages long, was not given to the individual congressman. There was only one copy available, and it was with the congressional clerk. And he was the only one who checked it out. And there were 2 senators, though, that were fighting the Patriot Act, Tom Daschle and Patrick Leahy. And a week later, as this debate heated up, and they were blocking the Patriot Act was just a nightmare of surveillance and totalitarian controls on the American people. And while they were debating it, 2 envelopes arrived at their offices filled with weapons-grade anthrax, and it was part of the kind of a broad attack on I think there were 22 media companies attacked, that month, and 5 people died. It shut down Congress, and those 2 guys, who were the guys who were opposing the Patriot Act, were essentially silenced. All Congress was shut. They rammed through the Patriot Act. Well, the Patriot Act had a provision in it that nobody read, which was a provision that reopened the bioweapon. It was the provision I talked about that said that, okay, we're going to leave Geneva and the bioweapons charter, Nixon's bioweapons charter, intact, but we're going to make a rule that says if you're a federal official, you can't be prosecuted for violating those. And that relaunched the bioweapons arms race. The Pentagon began putting billions of dollars into bioweapons and the CIA bioweapons research, but they didn't want to do it in-house at the Pentagon because, violating Geneva is an international code, and this Patriot override, it's unclear whether it actually is legal or not. And if you violate Geneva, it's a hanging offense. It's a capital crime. It's a war criminal capital crime. Nobody at the Pentagon really wanted to do it, so they gave the program to Anthony Fauci, and they began funneling billions, about $2 billion a year through NIH to do bioweapons development. And Anthony Fauci began launching all of these gain-of-function studies. At the University of North Carolina, he built biolabs at Galveston, at Boston, all over the country, BSL-4 biolabs. And then in 2014, 3 of the bugs escaped from different labs: smallpox, and I think it was yellow fever that year. Oh, and then anthrax. And 600 scientists wrote a letter to Obama, who was then in the White House, saying, you have to shut down Anthony Fauci. He's going to cause a global pandemic because he's making these bugs that are pandemic. They're pandemic viruses. And Obama declared a moratorium on Anthony Fauci's studies. He closed down 18 of them, officially ordered them closed. Well, Fauci didn't close them. So a couple of them he closed, the rest of them he kept open, and then he moved his operations to Wuhan, where they'd be offshore and out of the sight of nosy, White House busybodies and all the scientists from what they call the Cambridge Working Group who had written that letter to try to shut him down. And then after that, I think 73% of the gain-of-function studies that were funded by NIH took place in the Wuhan lab, which is a Chinese military lab. So he was over there teaching the Chinese Chinese scientists with military affiliations and military reporting structure, cutting-edge bioweapons technology that could be used in weapons of mass destruction. It was really insane. But even more insane, Fauci was over there funding, but the CIA was pumping 10 times that amount into the Wuhan lab through USAID and through EcoHealth Alliance, which was a CIA front too. So And then, the irony, of course, is that when COVID happened, the State Department, Mike Pompeo at the State Department, ordered 4 State Department branches to investigate whether the virus had come from the Wuhan lab. They got close to, they started finding all the gain of function studies and saying, holy cow. And in the middle, I think in March of 2020, an intelligence, and this is in Catherine Eben's Vanity Fair article, an intelligence official came into one of those meetings and said, you got to shut this down because it was we who were funding those studies, and this is going to be an embarrassment to the United States. And so they shut it down, but Congress continued to bug President Biden and said, you need to find out where this came from. Well, in 2021, he ordered Avril Haines, who was the director of national intelligence and who was the former deputy director of the CIA, to investigate where it come from. And after 90 days, she came back with a report, 500 pages, all of it redacted, none of it shown to the public, except for the executive summary that said we're unable to determine. Well, Avril Haines was the same person who co-hosted Event 201, which was this pandemic simulation in October of 2019 with Bill Gates and with George Gao, who's the head of the Chinese CDC. Now, at this time, coronavirus got COVID-19 escaped. This virus that caused COVID-19, we now know, escaped the lab sometime probably in August of 2019. The Chinese knew about it by September 19th because they kicked that night at midnight. They kicked down the doors of the Wuhan lab and they came in and took over and they removed all of the coronavirus genomes from the public-facing websites, and they put a military general in charge of the lab. And there were, technicians from the lab who were going to the hospital, so they knew at that point. And so a month after that, there's a pandemic simulation in New York City. The hostess is Avril Haines, and they have the pharmaceutical industry there, the social media companies, the media companies, Bill Gates, NIH, all of them. And they're simulating a coronavirus that escapes and kills, I think, 60 million people. And they're figuring out different ways that people have to do to deal with it. And of course, none of it was about public health. It was all about clamping down totalitarian controls and using it as a pretense to militarize and monetize the response. But the last seminar of that day is number 4. The 4th seminar is about censorship. And they're talking about if there's a lab leak, how do we censor rumors that get on the internet that this is a lab leak? And Avril Haines said, George Gao says we got to shut down the social media companies. And this is the head of the Chinese CDC, collaborating with U.S. health officials about how to censor Americans and shut down social media sites if they start talking about a lab leak. This is 3 months before New York knew at that point. And so a month after that, there's a pandemic simulation in New York City. The hostess is Avril Haines, and they have the pharmaceutical industry there, the social media companies, the media companies, Bill Gates, NIH, all of them. And they're simulating a coronavirus that escapes and kills, I think, 60 million people. And they're figuring out different ways that people have to do to deal with it. And of course, none of it was about public health. It was all about clamping down totalitarian controls and using it as a pretense to militarize and monetize the response. But the last seminar of that day is number 4. The 4th seminar is about censorship. And they're talking about if there's a lab leak, how do we censor rumors that get on the internet that this is a lab leak? And Avril Haines said, George Gao says we got to shut down the social media companies. And this is the head of the Chinese CDC, collaborating with U.S. health officials about how to censor Americans and shut down social media sites if they start talking about a lab leak. This is 3 months before anybody had ever heard of coronavirus, before the Chinese didn't acknowledge until January 1st, 3 months later. And yet they're talking about how to suppress lab leak rumors in October of 2019. And the person doing that is Avril Haines. She's the same person. And she says, famously, we not only have to censor anybody who talks about it, but we need to flood the zone with authoritative voices that say it's not true. So not only censorship, but propaganda. She is the official who was planning in October 2019 how to suppress lab leak discussion. She's the official that President Biden puts in charge of the investigation of Wuhan, of the COVID origins in Wuhan. And so it's not, and then by the way, Avril Haines is the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, which means she's basically the top official of the National Security Agency. What is the agency that ran Operation Warp Speed? It's not HHS. HHS didn't run Warp Speed. When Operation Warp Speed had to give its organizational charts to the FDA committee that was managing the pandemic response, VRBPAC, we saw they declassified the organizational charts, and we saw for the first time that HHS was not the lead agency on COVID response. It was the NSA, the National Security Agency, with the Pentagon second. Why is the National Security Agency a spy agency running a public health crisis? And why is Avril Haines, who has this checkered history of suppressing information, put in charge of, telling Americans the truth? It's a weird history.
Wow. Sorry, I keep playing that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, what do you think then when the people say that this was possibly on purpose, this leak from the China Wuhan lab?
Well, nobody knows. But, look, that lab was a leaky lab. And all of these labs, these bugs escape from all the time. I mean, in my book, my new book, which is going to come out, I have a whole chapter detailing hundreds and hundreds of escapes in these labs, that have caused major disease. I mean, Lyme disease was a laboratory escape, so, from Plum Island, from the military lab and agricultural department lab at Plum Island. And there are many, many others, many of the large pandemics that we're talking about that, this for a century have been lab escapes. And I go through all of those. And they know that on average, there's lab escapes from all of these labs. I mean, Ralph Barrick's lab has dozens of escapes a year, and it's supposed to be the best lab in the country. Or Dietrich has had many, many escapes. Almost every year, something gets out. So they know that if you're monkeying around with these kind of, deadly pandemic viruses, they are going to escape. How do they escape? Most commonly, a mouse bites somebody, or somebody jabs themselves with a needle, or they spill a culture on their ankle where they're not protected. And those are the kind of things. And then, or there's something gets in the garbage that they take out, or the negative airflow, air conditioning system breaks, and there's particles suspended that get out into the atmosphere, into the ambient environment. There's a million ways. I mean, the most common reported one is probably mouse bites. The technician gets bit and they don't know that they're sick and they go home. And once they're home, they get on the subway and they're spreading disease. And so if you're doing those kind of experiments with these deadly pandemic viruses in a shoddy lab, and they were not even doing it in the BSL-4 lab, they were doing it in the BSL-2 lab, which is like it's not, people who hear that, scientists who hear that say that's just criminal. And so they knew something was going to escape. They knew it. They knew it beyond any doubt. Something was going to escape because they were escaping all the time. So, and they're dealing with stuff. Coronavirus is mild. I mean, they're dealing with Ebola in there. They're dealing with Nipah virus, which I think kills 50% of the people who get it, maybe 20 or 50%. I forget which, but they have really deadly. They're taking the most deadly virus in the world because they're developing bioweapons. So they want things that kill people. and they're playing with them and trying to make them more deadly, more infectious. And it's just inevitable that they escape all the time.
Wow, that's just something else. I was in a deposition with Dr. Fauci, as you know, and he was still playing kind of dumb about gain of function and if he was funding that or if it was going on in Wuhan. It's pretty remarkable when I was listening to Dr. Fauci, because of course he's one who was sending a lot of money over to that laboratory.
Yeah, he was sending money over. He was sending, he had people over there. He had James LeDuc over there for a year. He had David France over there teaching, and he had Ralph Barrick teaching, not only teaching the Chinese military affiliated scientists how to make these super weapons, but also Ralph Barrick, who received $200 million from Fauci, taught the Chinese a technique called the seamless ligation technique. And that is a technique by which the scientists, after they engineer a deadly pandemic virus, there are fingerprints on that virus where you can tell it's been engineered. Ralph Barrick developed a technique called the seamless ligation technique. That is a way of hiding the evidence of human engineering. Now, there's no public health rationale for developing that kind of science. And we spent millions of dollars to Ralph Barrick from the federal government, taxpayer money, to not only develop a technique that is clearly about weapons development, stealth weapons development, but also to teach that to, our principal global adversary.
It's really incredible. You put out a tweet a couple of days ago, Robert, and this was about in 1960, the Soviet Union accused the United States of running an aerial spying program over its territory. Our government denied it at the time. And then unfortunately, we had 2 pilots captured. And Americans were genuinely shocked about the government lying to the American public about this. We're seeing that it seems like more and more, and this is what your tweet goes on to say, and you added, there can be no true democracy when government manipulates the people with spin, hype, propaganda, phony leaks, and outright lies. You want to add on to that or elaborate?
Well, but that, it was an interesting historical event because, and I remember it as a kid, I remember when it was happening, but Gary Francis Powers, who was the U-2 pilot, was shot down over Russia, where he was spying. And we had denied that we were spying. But the U-2 was flying at over 60,000, I think maybe even 100,000 feet, and nobody could see it. And they thought it could not be shot down. And the Russians shot it down. But Gary Francis Powers, who was the pilot, had a kit that he was supposed to take. I think it was, it was poison. And he was supposed to, it was in a coin with a little needle on it that he was supposed to prick himself and it would kill him instantly. And he was under orders to do that, and he just didn't do it. And so he parachuted instead. And the Russians captured him, but they didn't immediately say they had captured him. So they just accused the United States of having a U-2 that had crashed in Russia. And the Eisenhower administration, on the advice of Allen Dulles, denied it. And then they produced Gary Francis Powers, and it was an embarrassment to Russia, and it broke up a summit that was about to happen, a peace summit between the Soviet Union and the United States at Geneva that was, was scheduled. And it was all canceled because of this. But the other significance of that is that it was the first time for most Americans that they considered that the United States government would lie to them. And that was in 1960, right before my uncle. Just as a side note, it's interesting. This is kind of an interesting intersection in my own life. because the radar operator at the Atasui Air Force Base, where that U-2 had taken off and who was in charge of monitoring the U-2 flights, was Lee Harvey Oswald. He was a Marine who was working there. And then he subsequently defected, but it was a fake defection. It was a defection that was orchestrated by James Jesus Angleton, who was the head of counterintelligence at the CIA. Oswald was a CIA asset and was ordered to do this fake defection because they knew that there was a spy in Langley, and that the only way that the Russians could have shot down that U-2 is if they had a spy who had given them the plans, and so they wanted to find out who the spy was, and they never did. But the plan was that Oswald would defect to the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union would be wondering who he was and whether he was real. So they would contact the spy in Langley and to go and look at his files, and they had a trigger system on his files.
Gotcha, Rick. Gotcha, Rick. Gotcha. Thank you, Rick. I see you calling. My mic was off. Thank you, homie. Off. No sound. Sorry about that. SFST. Huntington Bank Corp is down 0.14%. I'll run back through those. Huntington Bank is down 1.95%. First Republic Bancorp dropped another 3%. They're absolutely completely bankrupt. I'll run back through those. Sequena got rocked yesterday. Horrible day. Then rallied back up. It's 15 minutes delayed. We won't see that. Pathfinder Bancorp down 1.1%. Zion Bank 2.2% today. First International Bancorp down another 4%. Key Corp is down 2.1%. HMST is Home Street. They're down 1.1% since open. And Metropolitan Bank down 3.5%. Western Alliance down another 6.15% today. PacWest already down 9.21% from open. PNC Bank down 1.7%. Bank of America down 0.37%, 0.037 or 0.37, I mean. Let's see what else we got. First Horizon Bank down 5.23% and Comerica Bank down 3.65% on the day. I'm wrecked on FRC. What's FRC? First Republic. Did your bank just have your mortgage them through stock wise, or did your bank and you have mortgages through them? Jamie Dimon must be making a killing on these shorts. I'm sure he is, man. And no doubt he is. Absolutely. Let's see. We've got the Dow Jones. S&P's not doing too bad. Just about even today. Gold's doing great. Bitcoin's doing all right. DXDY is coming up. US oil and NASDAQ. Cadena's hash rate's taken off. As far as trending on Twitter, E-Verify, Grimes, KDA is still trending. It's like its coin's been trending every single day. Andrews. Grand Theft Auto is coming out with a new one. Are they rolling out their new GTA? That's so funny. Make them illegal in all 50 states. Patriot Act. Patriot Act is trending. National E-Verify bill contains vague references to 2 pilot programs of non-photographic technology you must use to prove your identity to DHS in order to get a job. What is fingerprint, DNA, retina? Why not just say it in the bill? E-Verify is actually the Patriot Act 2.0. Haha. Just a few of the great Republican accomplishments before Trump since the 1980s. Mass amnesty, $700 billion in Wall Street bailout, the Patriot Act, the Iraq War, NAFTA, creation of ISIS, No Child Left Behind Act, immunity for pharmaceutical companies from lawsuits over claims. Very well said, my friend. Very well said. I think we need to rebuild both these parties from the ground up. Just like the Pass the Care Act, Thomas Massey is trying to warn people, and people are just shrugging it off. Also reminds me of when conservatives were gung-ho about the Patriot Act. Sure does. Thomas Massey will be proven right again, and short-sighted conservatives will be like, oops, I guess we duped into throwing away our freedom again. 2 words, Patriot Act. The E-Verify is a Patriot Act 2.0. I will not fall for the new Patriot Act. I never thought I'd see Republicans clamor to give Joe Biden an employment off switch for every American after he just used the threat of non-employment to force vaccinate millions of Americans. Mandatory federal E-Verify will ultimately not be used for the purpose advertised. Is there a thread there? Do 7/8 of this bill, leave out the 8th bill, which is E-Verify part. Private congressional committees, a strategic 5-year technology investment plan. In this section referred to the Uh-oh, Detroit's trending. What's trending in Detroit? At Detroit Metro Airport. Rocking the Barry Sanders Detroit. Bigger than we think. Mullen has been playing 4D chess with the masses. See the checkerboard. Very strategic booth placements at these events. Lately, the next show in a small networking event in the heart of Detroit. Detroit. Proof that Democrats in power. So here's Hiroshima in 1945. Here's Detroit in 1945. Here's Hiroshima in 2013. And this is proof that Democrats in power are more powerful and destructive than an atomic bomb. I couldn't agree more. That's a pretty good one. What up, Brandon? Good to see you, man. The King of Detroit. Color photos of Detroit's PCCs. I'll be honest, so salty. Blackhawks, after all the controversy about being bad for what, 1 year, gets Connor Bernard. Detroit has been bad for quite literally 7 years and has never moved up. I'm angry, yeah. I'm thugging through Detroit right now. Fell down a rabbit hole looking at a picture of Detroit in its heyday. Detroit has lost 60% of its population since 1950s. Half of the city is illiterate. There is not one major supermarket. It has the largest deserted skyscrapers in the world. The average price of a home is $7,000. Yeah, there ain't nothing to burn down in Detroit. Yeah, James Baker, Ryan Meta coming at you live from the slums of Detroit City. The only metropolitan city in the entire United States that you don't see on Fox News every day because, well, Tucker Carlson, they in front of all of us and did nothing about it. 16 hours of surveillance video, Detroit Hemlin Voting Center. 3 hours and 15 minutes after polls closed in Detroit, Michigan. Thousands of Deadliest cities in America: St. Louis, Democrat mayor; Baltimore, Democrat mayor; Birmingham, Alabama, Democrat mayor; Detroit, Michigan, Democrat mayor; Dayton, Ohio, Democrat mayor; Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Democrat-run mayor; New Orleans, Louisiana, Democrat-run mayor; Kansas City, Missouri, Democrat mayor; Memphis, Tennessee, Democrat mayor; Cleveland, Ohio, Democrat mayor. The states with the most lenient gun laws are New Hampshire, South Carolina, Georgia, Maine, Texas, Montana, West Virginia, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alaska, Kansas, South Dakota, Arizona, Kentucky, Missouri, Idaho, Wyoming, and Mississippi. Oh, that's a great one. That's really good. Bob Ritchie for VP. Who the hell is Bob Ritchie? Bob Ritchie? Oh, yeah, Kid Rock? Hell yeah, that'd be funny as hell. Nah, I think we need General Flynn, honestly. I think that's exactly who deserves to be there. General Flynn. Because Trump needs to come in like a wrecking ball and dismantle the military-industrial complex, the deep state, the powers that be. You know, he's our, what's that guy's name that said that from the Conservative Daily, I think, or not Conservative Daily. Oh yeah, and I'll be on Conservative Daily today at 1 p.m. as well. Or no, at noon. At noon I'll be on Conservative Daily, so I really got to run. And then at 2 p.m., I'll be over on LFA TV. So if you guys have not came over and found the LFA channel on Rumble, please swing over here and show the LFA team some love. We got Sean and Ungoverned right now coming up. Oops, what the hell did I just do? We got Sean and Ungoverned at 10, which just started. So I'm going to swing over there. I'll be in the live chat over there on Sean's show. And then at after that, we got Jeremy Harold and Live from America at 11 a.m. At noon, we have Mike Crispy and Ungoverned. At 1 p.m., we have Loud Majority with Kevin Smith. At 2 p.m., yours truly, Matter of Fact. At 3 p.m., Anna and Wrong Think. At 4 p.m., Moody with Isabella. At 5 p.m., Jeremy Harold again from Live from America. And at 6 p.m., we have Culture Wars with Will Johnson. Getting ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be the big day, supposedly what all Republicans have been waiting for. The takedown or indictment of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, the Biden crime family, connections to the CCP, Chinese government's going to be exposed, the corruption's going to be exposed, and we're going to take our country back. So the day we've all been waiting for is coming Wednesday. Let's see who's held accountable. Let's see what the breaking stories are. Let's see what the evidence is. And let's hope once and for all, we force the woke mainstream media to actually report and actually expose exactly what's going on over here. Love you guys. Again, my name's Rad Meta. I'll see you over on LFA TV, and I'll see you on Conservative Daily's channel as well. We're going to be live over there at, let me see if I can pull up their, let me see if I can pull up their Rumble. Yeah, so I'll be on Conservative Daily today at, that's going to be going on at, we're going to go live, I think, at noon. So come over there, show us some love on Conservative Daily's Rumble channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all.